As a reminder, please dial *3 to ask a question. We will open with remarks from Senator Layton, followed by Senator Sanders, Representative Welch, and Governor Scott. And then we will take your questions. Senator Layton, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to thank Bernie and Peter for being on here and the governor being with us. We've done a couple of these already. Congressman Welch and Senator Sanders have hosted them. And the governor has been gracious enough to come with us. We know these are uncertain times. Marcel and I are hearing stories from all our fellow Vermonters, and we know the tremendous sacrifices and they're being made, the social distancing guidelines, they're keeping themselves, their communities, their families safe. But this pandemic is hitting every single corner of our state. Everybody I've talked with, every family, they're feeling the effect. It is a lot of pain, but we are resilient. I know that Bernie, Peter, and I are working hard in the Congress to provide some relief to Vermonters. In fact, Congressman Welch is going to be voting in a few minutes on this. Senator Sanders and I passed a bill earlier this week in the Senate. It's supposed to be a bridge to a fourth, much needed coronavirus relief bill. And we have more funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. We took steps to try to assist the small stores, mom and pop shops, like those near my home in Middlesex. We want them to get these funds. We made a high priority to expand the SBA's disaster program to include small farms and agricultural operations. We insist on providing a $25 billion down payment for testing. Testing has to be expanded. It has to be expanded not only in our state, but throughout the country so we can go back to some kind of normalcy. Now, these steps are important, but we know it's not the time to let up. There are thousands of Vermonters and business owners who are still anxiously awaiting help. Others need more guidance and they need flexibility about the funding they've received. Vermont and local governments are struggling to keep communities afloat to help to address the pandemic. They need more money. And lines for food banks, other critical services continue to grow. I'll work with Bernie and Peter on a fourth comprehensive coronavirus relief bill in the coming weeks to address these. And we will work with, of course, the governor, with Governor Scott, the leadership in the Vermont House and Senate as we move forward. And I do want to thank the Agency of Human Services, Mike Smith, for being here, the Secretary, and the Secretary, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, Lindsay Curley, Commissioner of the Vermont Department of Labor, Michael Harrington, Vermont Commissioner of Health, Dr. Mark Levine, Vermont Director of the Small Business Administration, Darcy Carter. And now I'd like to turn it over to Senator Sanders and thank him again for hosting one of these and a very successful one of these call-ins. Bernie, it's all yours.
Well, Pat, thank you very much for hosting the event. Thanks for all the great work you're doing for Vermont and Washington. As Pat said, and everybody knows, we're living in an unprecedented moment in Vermont history and in American history. We're looking at simultaneously a pandemic. Almost 50,000 Americans have already died. We're looking at an economic meltdown where tens of millions of people have lost their jobs. And I know that what Pat and what Peter and I are focusing on in Washington is, number one, the implementation process. Last month, a $2.2 trillion bill was passed. That's a lot of money. How do we make sure that that money gets out to workers who have lost their jobs, the small businesses who are worried right now that they may never reopen? How do we get them the assistance that they need, even if they're not well connected and they don't have a whole bunch of lawyers and accountants to help them maneuver through the complicated process? Right now, we have seen lines around the country of people waiting to get food. Up in Swanton just the other day, there were many, many people coming out, far more than I think had been anticipated, to get emergency food. And we're seeing that all over the state. So what we've got to do is make sure that the money that was passed in Congress gets out as quickly as possible. But second of all, as Senator Leahy just indicated, I think much more needs to be done. We must make certain in the next bill, in my view, that everybody in this country during this crisis has health care. And I worry very much that people who are sick right now cannot afford to go to the doctor. And I think during this crisis, we've got to guarantee that everybody has health care is an American right. Second of all, we've got to streamline the process to make sure that people get the paychecks that they previously had. We've got to make sure that nobody in America goes hungry. So there's a lot of work to be done. And I know that I look forward to working with Pat and Peter in Washington and the governor in Montpelier to make sure that we do everything possible for Vermont.
Well, thank you, Bernie. And Peter, I know that you are probably going to have to leave us at one point to go and vote on the floor of the House for the for the package. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, that's right. Thank you, Patrick and Bernie. Our job for Vermonters in Washington is to do our level best to get resources back to Vermonters, to each individual Vermonters, to small businesses, and to our state that has to really come up with the money to fund programs. And we are lockstep, Bernie, Patrick, and me, on doing our level best to do that. This pandemic, a once in literally 100-year event, no matter what we do, no matter how much we do, it probably is going to leave a lot of us feeling it wasn't enough. But my view, and I think I share this with everybody on the call, is that our focus should be on doing too much and not worry about doing too little, because we've got to get this economy back. Second, on the healthcare decisions that are the crucial decisions that have to be made at this stage about social isolating, and then carefully, as the governor puts it, turning the spigot to get back towards normal, that's the fundamental responsibility of our governor. And I just want to say, as one Vermonter, I'm very pleased with the leadership he's provided. And it's hard, because what's necessary for us to be healthy and safe is social distancing. And the collateral consequence of that is we turn off the economy. And it has incredible financial challenges for people and folks who are worried about whether they or somebody they love will get sick. That's a lot of anxiety. But then added to it is the financial anxiety about whether you can take care of your kids and your partners. That's tough. And this is a long haul. Each of us has to do what we can. But what I am really pleased about is that everybody, regardless of party, situation, we are all in this together. Thank you very much, Patrick, for hosting this call.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. And you and Bernie gave the idea, and it's a good one. And one of the things in this has turned out we're all Vermonters. And the person who has made sure that we realize we're all in this together, no matter what our party is the governor. And so Governor Phil Scott, you're on. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate you putting this on. It's obviously great to be here again with you and Bernie and Peter and members of my administration as well. But I really want to thank the three of you for, we already knew you were doing your part and representing us well, but certainly over the last few weeks, you've punched above your weight in some respects. This has been a real team effort from the very start, and I appreciate your partnership, putting aside partisanship and doing what's right for Vermont and Americans as well. So, over the last 7 weeks, although it seems more like 7 months, I typically talk about it being in dog years. A lot has changed. So much has changed. On top of everything else, we've started to feel the real economic impacts of this pandemic of late. And to be honest, we've had some huge challenges trying to get unemployment checks out the door. And I know how tough that's been for far too many across the state. But we're making some headway on that. But it was after coming to the conclusion that some of the biggest obstacles were some of the federal processes itself. So I told my team to put people over process and find ways to work around the problem so we could get money out to Vermonters who are desperately in need. The good news is they went to work and did just that. And this week, so far, we've sent out over 50,000 payments, which amounts to over $60 million. And yesterday, we successfully launched this new pandemic unemployment assistance program. First time we've ever had to deal with this, first time our nation's ever dealt with this, where we allow self-employed and independent contractors to get unemployment benefits for the very first time. So we're one of the first states in the nation to launch this brand new program. This was passed by Congress just a while ago. So I want to thank you for your work on this because it's going to make a huge difference in the lives of Vermonters. And I also know, many businesses are around the state are getting help through the SBA and those PPP programs as a result of your work. So that's going to be important. And now I know this is all good news, but we know there's so much more work to do in the coming weeks and months. I heard on CNN I think it was yesterday, and they said we're really just in the second inning of this 9-inning game. And that's tough to have absorbed. And I know none of this has been easy, but I really want to thank Vermonters for coming together to fight this virus. Mitigation steps we put in place were some of the most restrictive in the country. But thanks to you, thanks to all Vermonters, it's really working better than we expected just a couple of weeks ago. But we need to stay on this in order to win this fight. We can't let up now. I just want to assure everyone that what we're doing, what we're going to do and continue to do is make decisions based on the science and data and on the advice of our experts. And we have some great people, some really talented people here in the state. So I want to quickly just add how lucky we are as Vermonters to have Dr. Mark Levine and his team at the Department of Health. They're doing an incredible job to keep us safe, as well as our other cabinet members. So again, thanks everyone for doing your part. We're going to get through this. We're going to do it together. And there is light at the end of this long tunnel. So with that, I'll send it back to Senator Leahy and look forward to your questions.
Fine. Thank you very much, Governor. You've been great to work with on this. And let me, people are taking the calls. Go ahead and set up, put the calls through. Just feel free for the caller to say who the question is for, whether it's for some of the governor's office or for any one of the three of us in the congressional delegation.
Thank you, Senator Leahy. As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please dial *3. Our first question is from Sharon in Townsend. Sharon, you're live on the line.
Hi, we own Misty Mountain Farm in Townsend, Vermont. It's a small family farm. Much of our community and our family is dependent on our farm. And we have now been 6 weeks with zero income. Our farm store is closed. We have vacation rentals. They are closed. And we do an educational program here on raising animals humanely. That is also closed. I have spent hours online every day. We are not eligible for any of this huge amount of money that has been put out there for stimulus. And I'm concerned about the survival of our farm, but also of all the family farms in Vermont and in New England, where we just cannot survive much longer without any income. Unfortunately, the animals still want to eat, and it is spring, so we have lots of babies, and hay season is coming, and there just is no money coming in.
Is there somebody first in the Vermont offices would like to go to that, either Darcy or Lindsay? Anybody like to try that?
This is Secretary Curley. Thank you, Senator. Sharon, first, let me say how sorry I am for what you're experiencing. I know that there may be an opportunity for loans / grants through the SBA with this next round of funding. Darcy may be able to speak to that a little bit more clear than I, but I would encourage you to send us an email at commerce.covid19@vermont.gov, and send me an email and share just a reminder that this is Sharon from Misty Mountain Farm, and I'd like to connect with you offline to learn more about your business, to see how we might connect you with opportunities. We do have a task force that the governor appointed that is working to identify the gaps that exist and that will exist. And so we want to know your story because we want to create a way to try to help you. So I want to learn more, and I encourage you to reach out to me. And again, Darcy might have some information with respect to loan opportunities.
Yes, Sharon, this is Darcy with SBA, and also please feel free to email me. It's Darcy, darcy.carter@sba.gov. When the new funding comes, I'm very excited to say that. The Paycheck Protection Program, farms are eligible, and also we'll be able to talk with you more about how you're structured, because there may, be some other things that you would be eligible for. And also the economic injury disaster loan, as Lindsay mentioned, it is in the Senate bill, I believe, that farms would be eligible for that, and that would probably be very helpful for you. So please give me an email, so darcy.carter@sba.gov.
Thank you. Our next caller is William from St. Johnsbury. William, you're live on the line.
Thank you, Senator, for doing this.
Incidentally, could I just, I'm sorry to talk over you, but just on that last call, there are some SBA programs, as Darcy just mentioned, that we fought to get agriculture operations in there so they could compete for them. And we got a bipartisan coalition of us that did that, so that may be helpful, but I'll hush up and listen to the next caller.
Am I on?
You are live on the air.
Well, thank you, Senator, for doing this. I appreciate it. My question is, I am aware that there are literally thousands of people looking for loans. I'm talking about local and regional banks now. They're not able to process these loans, and I'm led to believe that there's actually millions and many, many dollars available. But I want to know if the banks are getting these dollars so they can process these. Some loans are small business loans. Other loans go up into the millions, the requests for these loans. Please assure me that our local and regional banks are going to be made whole with this money coming from the federal government. Thank you.
Governor, what are you hearing on that?
Well, certainly we've punched above our weight in some respects because we're third in the nation in terms of taking advantage of the SBA loans. I think it's about $1 billion. And with the help that you worked on, that the delegation worked on this week, this will open up the door for more assistance. So I think Vermonters have tried to take advantage of that. We have a lot of need, and we hope to take advantage of these. But maybe Darcy has more information on that. But I believe we're third in the nation in terms of the SBA loans.
Yes, William, I think you can feel very confident in Vermont. We have tremendous engagement from credit unions, the local community banks, from the bigger banks that are in the state. All of them participated, and we've got new ones that have applied to be to engage with the Paycheck Protection Program. So I feel really solidly good all around. And if anyone has trouble, again, please let us know at darcy.carter.spa.gov, and we will, link you up with the resources.
Thank you. Our next caller is Cher from South Burlington. Cher, you're live on the call.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank you, Senator Leahy, Senator Sanders, and Congressman Welch, and Governor Scott. I'm so proud to be a Vermonter. My question for you is, you have a Herculean effort before you on your plate of all the health needs and financial needs and food needs that are concerning Vermonters. We're tough, and we're going to get through this. I'm very concerned, and maybe you can help us understand, with all of this weight in front of you, what kind of plans are there to ensure Vermonters that they will have a voice and be able to vote in a presidential election this fall, so that we can correct our course? Thank you.
If I could start with that, one thing I might say is that with our Secretary of State in Vermont, we have the clearest, most honest voting, I think, probably in the nation. Having said that, there's still a lot that has to be done in other parts of the country. We put hundreds of millions of dollars in other legislation to help states clean up and make sure their voting process is honest and open. I'm very confident in Vermont that we will do our part. It's the other states I worry about. I'll let anybody else add to that they might like to.
Pat.
Well, Chair,
This is
go
ahead,
Senator
Bernie.
Sanders, and I would just say that, to be honest with you, there is a major debate taking place in Washington. Nobody knows what the pandemic is going to look like in November, but we must do everything that we possibly can to make sure that every American is able to cast their constitutional right to vote. And your delegation is working hard to put funding into mail ballots to make sure that if people at the time of the election cannot go to a polling booth, they can vote by mail. And that is a major concern to me, that everybody be able to vote in November.
And this is Peter. I share that. We have to vote by mail so people can vote, and we have to vote by mail so people can vote safely and not risk a Wisconsin situation where people get sick.
It can be done. In the last CARES Act, initially the majority leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, did not want to put any money in. I went to members of the Appropriations Committee, both Republicans and Democrats. We joined together and put in $400 million, which he agreed to. Actually, the House wanted even more, but it was a start to have this. We know we need more. Bernie's absolutely right.
If I could just chime in as well, here on the local level in this state, the legislature went to work and provided some relief, some latitude to allow for us to make some changes in the election laws in order to make sure that everyone had their constitutional right to vote there before them. I know the Secretary of State has taken this seriously. He's working on this as a diligent effort and we'll all work together to make sure that happens. We have a primary coming up in August 1st, and then we'll go from there. But I know that it's on the minds of many, and we'll make sure that people have the ability to vote here in the state.
Thank you, Governor. Our next question is from Stephanie in Windsor. Stephanie, you're live on the call.
Hi, good evening. I want to thank you all for doing these. I've been following them all along, the previous ones you've done, Senator Sanders. My question goes back to the stimulus checks. I'm sorry to repeat, but I was under the understanding that if I had direct deposit of my Social Security check, then the stimulus check would be direct deposited. I went on IRS.gov and pushed get my payment and filled in the information. And the information I got was that my check would be mailed on the 24th of April, which is tomorrow. So my concern is, why are they doing it? Well, you probably don't know why they're doing a check if they said they were going to direct deposit it. But with all this talk about the post offices closing and cutting back on their delivery routes, I'm concerned as to whether I'm going to receive this by the mail. And I don't know who this should be directed to.
Let me take a start at it, because the IRS started issuing payments last week. You are absolutely right. You mentioned their website, www.irs.gov. They're updating that every day. If they said they're mailing yours out, you should be able to receive it. If you do not, you should feel free to call my office or Senator Sanders' office or Congressman Welch's office, and we'll try to track it down for you. But the IRS claims they're posting this.
Thank you. Our next call is from Chris in Randolph. Chris, you're live on the air.
Thank you very much. Look, I cannot thank you all enough. I will start with, in Vermont, Governor, your team, an amazing job you've done, and Senators and Representative Welch, we really appreciate all you've done federally. I want to say a couple of things. One is that besides being extremely proud of the work you guys are doing and how that makes Vermonters feel, I want to say that I also run a business that was an essential business, considered an essential business, because we're trying to connect people, internet to the home, and we've been doing free internet installations for people with school kids, and we've been able to continue that thanks to the governor's good guidance and the leadership that you've had. And we've been able to connect people that otherwise wouldn't have been able to be connected for free, at least through the end of the school year. So I hope that works. I also want to say that I paid my employees this week, today actually, for the first time with PPP funds, and so that also has worked for us. And what I want to ask is, Vermont is doing so well, and some of the other states are doing well, and obviously we have good partnership with our adjacent states. But what are we going to do as we come out of this and we try and do our program? What's going to happen if other states are seeing an uprise in cases? And we obviously don't want to get to a point where we're having to not have people from other states coming into our state, but is that a possibility, or how do we manage that? So I'll stop there, and again, thank you. You guys are all tremendous. I really appreciate it.
I'm going to ask
let me take.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me take a stab at that one as well, because what we're doing, and Dr. Levine can elaborate on this, but everything that we do in terms of trying to open up the economy and get through this has been based on science and data and watching our modeling and making sure that we have the healthcare capacity that we need and that we don't exceed that as well. We want to make sure that we stop the spread. So we've been successful at that. Everything that we've done has seemed to work. We're a little more restrictive than other states, but we benefited from that. Now that we're working our way out of this, again, opening the spigot a little bit at a time, and we'll be announcing a few more things tomorrow, we're going to continue to watch it and watch the modeling, watch the trajectory, and make sure that we're heading in the right direction, or at least not growing in terms of the number of positives that we see. So we're just going to continue to, and if we see an issue, then we'll take action because we know, again, preserving the healthcare capacity is number one. That's the most important thing, and keeping people healthy, obviously, is a big part of that. But at the same time, trying to make sure that we get the economy rolling again in a very methodical way, so that we don't cause harm to anyone. And so I am concerned about other states as well, because some haven't been as restrictive as we have. We've taken a lot of care in making sure that we're doing all we can to protect Vermonters. So they could, if they don't take the same steps, they could impact our state. So again, we're paying attention. But we can't close the borders either. That's not the way we're built, and we want to make sure that we're accepting and work with our neighbors. But I stay in touch with other governors as well to make sure that we're at least understanding where the other states are moving in terms of opening up their economy. So, Dr. Levine, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Governor. I think you did a wonderful job. I'm not sure I could add too much at this point. I do worry about borders all the time, but the time to worry about them the most would be if we were more liberal and less restrictive, which would encourage tourists and enthusiasts for various activities like hiking and fishing and what have you to come into the state at a time when their state had a higher disease prevalence than our state. But I don't think we're in danger of that at this point in time. But we have to be keeping our eye on that very, very carefully. That's all I'll say.
Thank you. Our next caller is James in Fairfield. James, you're live on the call.
Good afternoon, Governor Scott and Commissioner Levine. My concern, I guess, is that if we open up and relax our restrictions without proper testing, isn't that going to endanger the state and individuals in the state for infection? That's my question.
Yeah, again, I'll take the first swipe at this one as well, and then let Dr. Levine clean up anything I say. But we've been fortunate in the state. You know, we started off was a challenge. Testing was a challenge, and obviously we'd like to do a lot more testing, but we've increased our capacity tremendously over the last 2 or 3 weeks to the point that we're being a little bit more proactive. We're getting out there. We're anticipating where we might see a positive breakout, one of these flare-ups, so to speak, so that we can surround it. Like, think of it like a forest fire, and if there's an ember that is there smoldering, then all of a sudden there's a flare-up. We want to be able to make sure that we're in there to take care of that and smother it so it doesn't spread any further. And so we've been fortunate in that regard. So I feel good about our testing program. We're going to continue to grow that. We're going to do a lot of tracing as well. I think that's really important, that when we see a positive case, that we're able to trace it almost immediately, and so that we can make sure it doesn't spread. So again, between tracing and testing, That's part of the answer to growing or to opening up this economy. And I feel at this point in time we have a handle on it, but we need to do as much as possible. And this last bill will help in that regard as well. Dr. Levine?
Yeah, we just re-emphasize that testing and contact tracing go hand in hand. They're really inseparable, and they need to be a major part of not only Vermont's, but the whole country's and world's future strategy with coronavirus. Because the more we can actually isolate out small flare-ups, as the governor was referring, the better it off for everyone, because we won't have widespread disease. If the governor's been having trouble sleeping lately, he's getting a document to read tonight that I produced that will help that problem. And it really refers to some innovative new strategies that we can use in our testing approach, because we do have capacity for testing, and we can actually, I think, learn more about the disease, but even more importantly, help Vermonters, both vulnerable Vermonters and Vermonters who want to get back in the economy and get back to work. We can help them by adopting a number of new testing strategies. So in the days and week to come, I'm sure you'll hear more about this after the governor's team and himself have had time to really help develop and refine those strategies. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is Carlene from Plainfield. Carlene, you're live on the call.
Hi, thank you very much for putting this together. I really appreciate this. I am a very proud Vermonter. And my question to all of you is something that was just touched upon. And I'm wondering if there will be put in place a vulnerable citizen protection program of some sort as people go back to work. I'm sure people in that category will want to feel that they are not being left behind or forced into quitting jobs or something like that. So that is my question.
Well, we want to make sure that we're not forcing anybody to go back to work without them feeling safe and secure. And we put a lot of measures in place. If we allow the spigot again to be open up, where a business is able to open or a sector is able to open, that there are a lot of initiatives and guidelines and safety programs and health programs and so forth that we want to make sure that are in place as we do this, because we know not only do we want to keep others safe, we want to keep ourselves safe. So those who are going back to work, we want to make sure if they don't feel secure, they shouldn't go back to work. But we are fairly confident with the measures we're taking and doing this as slowly and methodically as we're doing, that we will be safe. And that's why we're not opening the spigot all at once or flicking the light switch on all at once. We're doing this very, very, very carefully. And I do receive some criticism for not opening up quick, but I think what we've done thus far has worked, and we want to continue down this path and make sure that we continue to have success here in Vermont.
Our next caller is Roger. Roger, you're live on the line.
Yes. Okay. I'm an older guy, and valuable because my immune system is not as up to par. But I've got friends and relatives all over the state who, just like me, go down to the store and there's piles of people out just hanging out and getting together in small groups and not wearing masks. But there's a lot of them that are wearing masks. And I'm wondering, it's going to be hard for guys like me to go down there and try to get some food and my meds. What do you have to say on that?
Could I just throw in a thing here as a husband of a nurse who tells me every single time I even go to the post office, I have to wear my mask. I have to keep distance from everybody, wash my hands and so on. I wish everybody would do that. I do know the concern that people have about that. And I wish everybody would think of all those who are out there working for us. I look at the Boys and Girls Club in Burlington handing out food for everybody, and they're asking everybody to be careful when they come near them. Frontline Foods have done that. Our Vermont National Guard has done an enormous effort in getting food to people all around the state. But every one of us has an obligation to keep our distance. The governor is right in saying we'll take this day by day as we see what's happening, because some other states are not being as careful, and we don't want that to feed back on us.
Thank you, Senator. Our next caller is John from Middlebury. John,
Hello?
You're live on the call. John, you're live on the call now.
Hi. Thank you for holding this. My question is directed at Governor Scott, and it's about the. You mentioned that over the weekend that you ordered the Labor Department to try and speed up processing of unemployment claims. I'm wondering if there's anything you can say about still the backlog of claims, and specifically those who have to go through the adjudication to get their claims cleared up.
Well, again, I believe that we've been able to run through, I would say not every claim, but the majority of them, and I'm going to say maybe 90%. There may be a few that need to be done manually. I will let Mike Harrington, he's on the line, our Commissioner of Labor, answer that directly, but it's my belief that we were able to clear about 30 or 40,000 of them over the last week, which was a tremendous effort by everyone involved. But it involved us taking a few risks, circumventing the federal process in doing so. But we thought it was more important that people get money, receive money, and so they can put food on the table and pay some bills and just survive. So we took that risk, and we'll continue to do that today. But help is on the way. We're putting more people on the phones and actually clearing some of those claim issues that you are talking about. So, Commissioner Harrington.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for the question. Agreed. I would say there are a few people who are going through the adjudications process. It's not the majority. It truly is the minority of the population. But we have cleared issues that we felt were stopping payments that are pretty low-level issues. But there are a number of other claim issues that do require true adjudication. They require an opportunity for an employer to weigh in on the separation, and there are a number of reasons why that may occur. And there are people in adjudications right now who are waiting, and we're expediting those as quickly as we can. Some take a little longer than others. And then I think we also have to be prepared, and I don't think it's a large population, but there may be people out there that even in the end may not be eligible for unemployment insurance benefits, although I think that's a pretty small portion of the population, but that may also occur. But we are adding more adjudication staff and are working through this large influx of cases that have come in and are working to get through those to ensure that people get paid.
And can I ask you if you're having a problem yourself at this point in time, and if so, maybe you could share. You don't have to do it on the air, but maybe someone who's on the line can get your name and phone number so that we can call you back.
We have their name in the system, so we'll be able to get back in touch with you. Our next caller is
Are you having a
Dan
problem?
from Governor, they'll be able to get back in touch with you through our office. Our next caller is Dan from Middlebury. Dan, you're live on the air.
Good evening. I thank you all for what you're doing. I own a 21-room inn and a restaurant in Middlebury, Vermont. I am closed and enthusiastically supporting what the governor is doing. All 18 of my staff members are on a very generous unemployment and sitting at home. I have, through wonderful work with the National Bank of Middlebury, I already have the PPP. However, my problem is that under the current restrictions for forgiveness, with being closed, the 8 weeks to expend it, which I'm already 1 week into, and the technicalities of the loan, which if I don't meet certain criteria, that it will either be completely unforgivable or not forgivable, makes it impossible for me to use this loan right now, and it is currently sitting in the bank waiting for technical changes. I'm already $70,000 into a line of credit, looking for other options. I have been talking to several restaurants in my town with me. We're constantly going back and forth. They are in similar situations. The National Restaurant Association, the AHLA, has sent letters to our Congress and to the Senate. When we do not need to call our employees back right now, take them off a generous unemployment situation, pay them with a PPP, and get full forgiveness, and then when we open, which is an unknown time, that we have no money to open our business with a very, very soft business economy, unknown what we'll have in the restaurant or if we'll have any guests in the inn. We need the PPP and the 8 week period or whatever period it will be to be used when we open our restaurants and our inns, so that we can go with a soft opening, get our employees back, and try to grow our business to keep our employees. If we don't do it in that manner, there are going to be several of us that will probably not open, and those employees will be looking for permanent unemployment or other jobs. We need the Congress to help us with technical changes to the CARES Act and the PPP to help us get through this. Thank you.
I think I heard this. I've probably had a dozen calls this week alone around the state with somewhat similar things. He has stated it probably as clearly and accurately as anybody I've heard. It's we are working on another package. Right now, we're demanding more flexibility. We have to have more flexibility to take care of these things. The House is passing additional funding for PPP tonight.
We're back live.
Thank you for joining the event today. If you have a question, please press star 3 on your telephone keypad, and we will be right with you. Please press star 3 if you have a question today. Thank you so much for joining the event. We will be right back with you. Thank you so much for joining. If you have a question, please press star 3 on your phone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining this event today with Senator Leahy and his special guests. If you have a question, please press star 3 on your phone, and we will get to you shortly.
Are we still connected?
Hello, Senator. Can you hear me?
I think I lost. Yes,
Perfect.
I do.
Welcome back.
I'm sorry.
Thank you,
I was
Senator.
trying to answer the gentleman from Middlebury. I don't know if that answer came through or not.
No problem at all. We're going to move on to the next question, if that's okay with you, sir.
Absolutely, and I apologize.
No problem at all, sir. We're going to go to Paul. Paul, you are live with the senator and his guests today. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I have a question. First of all, we're very lucky, and I thank our state for doing this because other states are kind of jealous that we're doing this. And two, and I'd like to thank my representatives for doing a great job and being the conscience of Congress. And to my governor, I'm very proud of him. I didn't vote for you, but I am quite proud of you, and that you're doing a great job, and that you're not pulling politics. My question is to you guys is that the voting that was done for the new relief, what kind of guarantee is there that greed is not going to be put into this? Because, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of embarrassed what I see on the news. And the second question is, when November comes and when the change comes, is there going to be accountability to all these people who are taking advantage of our system and everything that has been done? Is there going to be an accountability? That is my question. Because being American and seeing all this circus on TV, I'm quite embarrassed.
Okay, is this coming through now?
Yes, Senator, you're back on.
No,
Yes.
That's a real question. I've seen a lot of this money go not where we intended. We had a lot of work with both Republicans and Democrats, certainly in the Senate Appropriations Committee. We wanted this funding to help people in all our states, hardworking Vermonters in mine and Bernie and Peter's state, not for bailouts for wealthy CEOs. We are starting, I hope, much tougher oversight, but also we have been lobbying the White House, both Republicans and Democrats have, to say they've got to step up their game and work with governors like Governor Scott to make sure the money is going where we want it to go. And I'll get off the phone. Anybody else feel free to add in.
Well, I would just pick up on what Pat said. This is Bernie. With literally trillions of dollars out there, you can be absolutely assured that there's going to be a lot of greed. There's going to be an effort at price gouging. There's going to be companies that have not been by the pandemic trying to take advantage of the money that is available. So I was, for example, not happy to read that, that $175 billion in the last bill ended up going to the real estate industry. People today listening to this program who are worried about how they're going to feed their families, pay their rent, pay their mortgages, keep their small businesses going. And as Pat just mentioned, those are the people we're trying to help, not large corporations who might take advantage of this program. So there will be an effort to bring about the kind of transparency that we need. We want to know what companies are getting the money and whether, in fact, they actually needed it and what they are doing with it. But your question is a very important one.
And if I can just add, I'm walking back from just voting. We should set up a commission like the Truman Commission. That was at the beginning of World War II, and what he observed was that all these commissions after the fact, the price gouging and everything else that happened in World War I, if we were on it in the beginning, we could spend a lot less and save a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you. We only have time for one more call. Jim from Shaftesbury. Jim, you're on the line.
Okay, hi, thank you. Thank you, folks, for all your great effort that you're putting in. We're very proud of you, and we're proud of Vermonters. This really isn't a Vermonter question. It's every night my wife and I sit and we hear interviews from people who are out in the first responders, the frontline people, doctors, nurses, who are dealing with this pandemic. And as I understand it, at least several hundred doctors have died giving their lives to help our country survive, including hundreds of nurses have died, and other first responders, emergency medical people. And I see the billions and trillions of dollars that we are setting aside to save our economy, and it's all necessary, I'm sure. But I don't see anything set aside for the families of these people who have given their lives. I don't want to equate them with 9/11 first responders, but it's very similar. And if we're going to have a second or maybe a third wave of this, their morale and their enthusiasm and energy is going to be greatly affected. And I think if something could be done for these families, survivors benefits, free post-secondary education for their children because now they've lost their father or their mother. And I don't see anything being said about that. Now, maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe when things subside, maybe people will bring this up. Let's take care of these folks. But in any event, I just want to raise it. They're heroes. They're a lot of them have made the ultimate sacrifice for us. Okay, that's it.
Well, I'm glad to hear him say that they should be recognized, and of course they should be, will be. We've put in more money for our hospitals, especially rural hospitals. We have to do more, ramp up the Defense Production Act. Urge the White House to do that, to produce more personal protection equipment. We can do that, and we should provide those resources now so that we don't need benefits later. We have to protect them now. And we will have a Heroes Fund in the next, the CV4. But in the meantime, we have got to provide for them right now. I'm worried about rural hospitals, and I was born in Vermont. It's a pretty small hospital. In fact, it's not even there anymore. And when we've got to protect these people, I watch the nurses, the doctors, everybody else who works in the hospitals, and the first responders, and the ambulance drivers and all. They are the people that we have to be protecting, and I'm hoping that we will have the money in there. We've already put aside some money that can be used for them, but I agree with the caller. We need more.
Jim, this is Bernie. That is a wonderful and important point you're making. So many people have made the ultimate sacrifices: doctors, nurses, grocery store clerks, people who are out there every day putting their lives on the line to keep the economy going. I think you're absolutely right. And I will work with Senator Leahy and Congressman Welch to make sure we have survivors' benefits. I think we also have to move forward on hazard duty pay. Right now, there are people in this country who are making $10, $11 an hour, and they're getting sick, and some of them are dying. And I think we have to say that at this moment, they should receive a significant increase in their pay.
I agree with that. They're like Vermonters. They show up and do their job. Let's acknowledge it and thank them.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Senator Leahy's telephone town hall today. Senator Leahy, I'm going to turn the floor over to you one last time for closing remarks.
Well, thank you. One, I want to thank Senator Sanders, Congressman Welch, and Governor Scott, and all of Governor Scott's team for joining us on this. In fact, Marcel and I want to thank everybody who joined on the call today. We've had a lot of Vermonters who called in, a lot have called us at home, called us at the office, and I know they're asking what can they do to help our fellow Vermonters. The governor has set up a website. People can look for volunteer opportunities. I would encourage all Vermonters to fill out the census. We didn't mention that, but that's extremely important. We have one of the lowest response rates in the country. We have to get the census because it helps determine where we can get federal funding. We can come out of this eventually. So many have stepped up, have done so much for our state. I think Burton Snowboards and donating hundreds of thousands of masks to help people. Everybody else has done the food banks and all the rest. We're in it together, and we'll come out of it together. But we have to do the steps in the meantime. And I just throw out that one thing about the census. Be sure and fill it out. But thank you all for being here. Come through?
The Access Live event has ended. Thank you for calling. Goodbye.